Every morning in classrooms across America, teachers write their names on whiteboards and prepare to shape young minds. For Colleen Ritzer, Room 108 at Danvers High School wasn't just a classroom, it was her dream realized. Colleen Ritzer was more than just a math teacher. She was a caring mentor who inspired her students every day. Known for her warm smile and encouraging words, Colleen made learning fun and meaningful. Her classroom was a safe space where students felt valued and understood. She was the teacher who decorated her walls with inspirational quotes, who tweeted math problems just to keep her students thinking. The one who stayed late, came in early, and never gave up on a struggling student. No matter what happens in life, be good to people, she would say. Being good to people is a wonderful legacy to leave behind. On October 22, 2013, Colleen wrote one last algebra equation on her whiteboard. The final bell had rung. The halls of Danvers High had emptied. But she wasn't alone. A 14-year-old student had asked for help with math. And Colleen, being Colleen, said yes. She never made it home that night. As classes ended and students began to leave, Philip Chisholm, a seemingly ordinary 14-year-old, followed Colleen into the girls' bathroom. What happened next is chilling. Chisholm attacked her from behind, first strangling her until she was incapacitated. In a brutal escalation, he then stabbed her 16 times with a box cutter, inflicting wounds that would prove fatal. But the horror didn't stop there. After committing this unimaginable act, he violated her further, raping her in the very place where she should have felt safe. As if that wasn't enough, he callously stuffed her lifeless body into a green recycling bin and wheeled it out to the woods behind the school. Once there, he desecrated her memory yet again, using a tree branch in a second assault before finally covering her body with leaves. He left behind a handwritten note near her remains that read, "I hate you all," a chilling testament to his disturbed state of mind. Philip Chisholm's actions that day were not just a crime. They were an assault on trust and humanity itself. As we explore this case further, we will uncover how such darkness could emerge from within the walls of a school meant for learning and growth. In the hours and days that followed, a community would be shattered. A family would face the unthinkable. And a question would haunt everyone who heard the story. How could a simple act of kindness, staying after school to help a student, end in such darkness? But this isn't just another true crime story. This is about a 24-year-old woman who lived her life bringing light to others. Who believed that every student could succeed. Who wrote in her blog that teaching wasn't just her job, it was her calling. Today, years after that October evening, thousands run in her memory. Scholarships bear her name. And in classrooms across Massachusetts, future teachers study her methods, her passion, her dedication. This is the story of Colleen Ritzer. Not just how she died, but how she lived. And how her light continues to shine. Before we dive deep into today's story, I want to take a moment to thank all of our amazing subscribers. Your support means the world to us. If you're new here, welcome to Crime Scene Chronicles. We're thrilled to have you join our community. If you enjoy true crime stories and want to stay updated on our latest videos, please hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you're helping us grow and continue sharing these important narratives. Don't forget to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Now, let's get started with today's story. Colleen Elizabeth Ritzer was born on May 13, 1989 in Andover, Massachusetts. From the very beginning, she was surrounded by love and warmth. Her parents, Tom and Peggy Ritzer, were hardworking and kind-hearted people who raised their children with strong values. Tom worked as an accountant, and Peggy also had a career in accounting. Together, they made sure their home was filled with laughter, learning, and a deep sense of care for one another. As the oldest of three siblings, Colleen naturally took on the role of the nurturer. She had a younger brother, Dan, and a younger sister, Laura, and she adored them. Growing up, Colleen was the kind of big sister who made everything fun. There's this sweet story her family shared about how she used to set up a pretend classroom in their living room. She'd line up her stuffed animals as her students and teach them math lessons using a little chalkboard her parents had bought for her. Of course, Dan and Laura were often roped into being her real students too. Even back then, it was clear that teaching wasn't just something Colleen wanted to do, it was part of who she was. Her parents played a huge role in shaping her into the person she became. They believed in kindness above all else and taught their kids to always look out for others. The Ritzers were also big on giving back to the community. They'd volunteer together as a family at local events or charity drives, which left a lasting impression on Colleen. These experiences planted the seeds of compassion that would later define her life. Colleen's childhood wasn't just about academics or helping others. She loved to have fun too. Friends from her neighborhood remember her as someone who could light up any room with her smile. She loved spending time outdoors, playing soccer with friends or riding bikes around the block until the sun went down. When it came to school, Colleen excelled in every way. She attended Andover High School and graduated in 2007. Her teachers described her as bright and hardworking but also incredibly humble. She wasn't just focused on herself, she always made time to help classmates who were struggling. One former classmate shared how Colleen once stayed after school for hours helping them prepare for a math test they were dreading. That's just who she was, always willing to go the extra mile for someone else. After high school, Colleen attended Assumption College in Worcester, Massachusetts. It was there that her love for math really blossomed. She majored in mathematics and graduated magna cum laude in 2011, a huge accomplishment that she was incredibly proud of. But what made Colleen special wasn't just how smart she was. It was how much she cared about using her knowledge to help others succeed. After college, Colleen began teaching at Danvers High School in 2012. From day one she stood out. Not just because she was young and full of energy but because of how much she genuinely loved teaching. Her classroom wasn't just a place where kids learned math, it was a place where they felt safe and supported. Colleen had this incredible ability to make even the most challenging topics seem approachable. She'd break things down into simple steps or come up with creative ways to explain concepts so that everyone could understand. One student shared how Colleen once turned a complicated algebra problem into a game where they had to compete in teams to solve it first. And by the end of class, even the kids who usually hated math were laughing and having fun. What really set Colleen apart was how much she cared about her students as people. She wasn't just their teacher, she was their mentor and cheerleader too. If someone seemed upset or distracted during class, she'd quietly check in with them after school to see if they were okay. For many students, she became someone they could trust, not just with their grades but with their struggles too. Her colleagues admired her just as much as her students did. They often said that Colleen brought a sense of joy and positivity to everything she did. Whether it was organizing school events or staying late to help plan lessons with other teachers, she always gave 110%. And even though she was busy teaching full-time, Colleen still found time to pursue her master's degree at Salem State University because she believed in constantly growing as an educator. Outside of school, Colleen stayed deeply connected to her community in Danvers and beyond. She volunteered regularly at local food drives and encouraged her students to get involved too. She believed that education wasn't just about textbooks, it was about teaching kids how to be good people. One project that meant a lot to her was organizing donations for families in need during the holidays. She'd rally her students together to collect toys and clothes for children who might not otherwise get presents that year. It wasn't part of her job description, it was just something she felt strongly about doing. Colleen also loved sharing little moments of inspiration with everyone around her. She had this habit of writing uplifting quotes on the whiteboard in her classroom every morning, things like "be kind," or "make today amazing." It may have seemed like a small gesture, but those words stuck with people long after they left her classroom. Colleen Ritzer's life may have been tragically cut short, but even in those 24 years she left behind an incredible legacy of kindness, compassion, and love for learning. Her story reminds us of the power one person can have, not just as a teacher but as someone who truly cared about making the world better for everyone around her. Philip Chisholm was born on September 14, 1999, in Clarksville, Tennessee. At first glance, his early life seemed pretty typical. He was part of a military family. His father, Stacy Chisholm, served in the U.S. Army and his mother, Diana Chisholm, worked as a nurse. Because of his father's job, the family moved around quite a bit, which made it hard for Philip to form lasting friendships or feel settled anywhere. When Philip was just 10 years old, his parents' marriage started to fall apart. The tension at home grew until they finally divorced in 2013, the same year that would change everything for Colleen Ritzer and the Danvers community. After the divorce, Diana moved Philip and his siblings, an older sister and a younger brother, to Massachusetts in hopes of starting fresh. But this change only added to Philip's feelings of loneliness. He left behind friends and familiar places in Tennessee for a new town where he felt like he didn't belong. Diana later shared that the divorce was tough on Philip. In interviews after the tragedy, she mentioned that he had been under a lot of stress and described him as someone who could easily lose control when pushed too far. Mental health issues were part of their family history. Philip's grandfather had faced significant challenges throughout his life. Although Diana tried her best to create a stable environment for her children, it was clear that Philip was struggling with more than just adjusting to a new school. At Danvers High School, Philip was known as the new kid. He was tall for his age, over 6 feet, and quiet, which made him stand out among his classmates. He joined the school's soccer team and initially seemed to be fitting in well. Coaches noted that he had talent on the field but was reserved off it. He rarely spoke during practice and didn't hang out with teammates outside of games. In class, Philip was smart but often seemed disconnected. Teachers noticed that he would sometimes zone out during lessons or doodle instead of taking notes. Despite this behavior, he managed to keep up with his schoolwork without causing any trouble, at least not at first. As time went on, classmates began to notice subtle changes in Philip's behavior. He became more withdrawn and irritable. One student remembered how he would sit alone at lunch, avoiding conversations with others. Another said he often appeared angry but couldn't explain why. There was one moment that stood out, a warning sign that many would overlook at the time. During an algebra class taught by Colleen Ritzer just weeks before her murder, Philip reacted strangely when she mentioned Tennessee while discussing something unrelated to him. Witnesses recalled how he clenched his fists and refused to participate for the rest of the lesson. It seemed like a small incident then but felt unsettling in hindsight. So what was going on in Philip Chisholm's mind? Was this typical teenage frustration amplified by his parents' divorce and moving across the country? Or were there deeper issues affecting him, issues that no one recognized until it was too late? As we continue this story, we'll explore how all these factors came together on October 22, 2013, the day Philip Chisholm made choices that would forever alter the lives of many. October 22, 2013, was a day that started like any other at Danvers High School. Colleen Ritzer arrived early, ready to teach and inspire her students. She greeted them with her usual warmth, writing an uplifting quote on the whiteboard as she often did. Her day unfolded like countless others, helping students, sharing her love for math and spreading positivity. But by the end of that day, Colleen would be gone, and the details of what happened would leave an entire community in shock. As the school day ended, Philip Chisholm stayed behind. He was supposed to attend soccer practice that evening, but instead, he lingered in the building. Surveillance footage later showed him following Colleen into the second-floor girls' bathroom. What happened next was unimaginable. Inside that bathroom, Philip attacked Colleen with a box cutter he had brought to school. He strangled her and stabbed her 16 times in a brutal assault. After taking her life, he violated her body in a horrific act of sexual violence. This wasn't a crime of passion or a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was calculated and deliberate. Philip then stuffed Colleen's body into a green recycling bin he found nearby. He wheeled the bin through the empty school hallways, calmly as if nothing had happened, and took it out to the woods behind the school. There, he left her body partially covered with leaves and branches. But even after committing such an unspeakable act, Philip didn't stop. He used Colleen's credit card to buy a movie ticket at Hollywood Hits Theater that same evening. It was chilling how normal his behavior seemed after what he had just done. But here's where things take another turn. Philip himself was reported missing by his mother at around 5:30 p.m. that evening. She told police that he hadn't come home after school and she was worried about him. At the same time, Colleen's family also grew concerned when she didn't return home or answer her phone. Her father drove to Danvers High School to look for her but found no sign of his daughter. By late evening, police were actively searching for both Colleen and Philip. At around 12:30 a.m. on October 23, a Topsfield police officer spotted Philip walking along Route 1 in the wrong direction, northbound in the southbound lane. He was alone and carrying a backpack. When officers stopped him, they found disturbing evidence inside his bag: a blood-stained box cutter, women's underwear, Colleen's credit cards, and her driver's license. It was clear that Philip wasn't just missing. He had been running from something far darker. Meanwhile, back at Danvers High School, investigators discovered blood in the second-floor bathroom where Colleen had been attacked. The trail of evidence led them outside to the woods behind the school. There, they found the green recycling bin and Colleen's lifeless body hidden beneath leaves. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community. How could something so horrific happen in a place meant for learning and safety? And how could a 14-year-old boy commit such a brutal crime against someone who had only ever shown him kindness? As we continue this story, we'll explore how these events unfolded in court, the arguments made by both sides, and how justice was ultimately served for Colleen Ritzer. As the search for Colleen Ritzer continued on the morning of October 23, 2013, police were working hard to figure out what had happened at Danvers High School. This school, usually a safe place for students, had turned into the scene of a terrible crime. The first big clue came when investigators looked at the school's surveillance footage. What they saw was unsettling. The cameras showed Philip Chisholm walking into the girls' bathroom just after Colleen. A short time later, he came out pushing a large green recycling bin. He moved calmly through the hallways as if nothing was wrong. This calmness made police uneasy. As they watched more footage, they noticed Philip changing his clothes after leaving the bathroom. He threw away his bloody clothes in a trash can near the school. This showed that he had thought about what he was doing and wanted to hide it. Police also talked to students and teachers to gather more information. Classmates mentioned that Philip had been acting quiet and withdrawn that day, but no one could have imagined what he was about to do. Teachers remembered Colleen being her usual cheerful self. There were no signs that anything was wrong. While investigators were busy at the school, another team was searching for Philip, who had been reported missing by his mother earlier that evening. Around 12:30 a.m., a police officer in Topsfield spotted someone walking along Route 1, alone and looking lost. It was Philip. When officers stopped him, he didn't run or resist. He stood there as they asked him questions about where he had been and why he was out so late at night. His answers were unclear and seemed disconnected from reality. Then came the shocking discovery. Inside Philip's backpack were items that linked him directly to Colleen's murder. Officers found a bloody box cutter, the weapon used in the attack, as well as Colleen's credit cards and driver's license. These items told a terrible story that no one wanted to believe. Back at Danvers High School, investigators followed the evidence left behind in the building. They found blood in the girls' bathroom where Colleen had been attacked. From there, they traced Philip's steps out of the school and into the woods behind it. That's where they found Colleen's body. Her remains were discovered partially covered by leaves near some trees, a heartbreaking end to a search that her family had hoped would turn out differently. Forensic teams worked carefully to document everything at the scene while officers informed Colleen's family of what had happened. Philip's arrest shocked everyone in Danvers and beyond. How could a 14-year-old boy do such a terrible thing to someone who had only ever been kind to him? The community struggled to understand it all while grieving for a teacher who meant so much to so many. Even as Philip sat in custody, many questions remained. Why did he do it? Was this planned? Or did it happen in a moment of anger? These questions would soon be central in court as both sides prepared for a trial that would reveal everything. After Philip Chisholm's arrest, the legal process began to unfold, and the details of the case shocked everyone who followed it. Prosecutors wasted no time filing charges against him. He was charged with first-degree murder, aggravated rape, and armed robbery. These weren't just words. They represented the full scope of what Philip had done to Colleen Ritzer. Let's break them down. First-degree murder meant that prosecutors believed Philip planned the attack in advance. This wasn't something that happened in the heat of the moment, it was deliberate. Aggravated rape reflected the horrific sexual violence he committed against Colleen, both in the bathroom and later in the woods. Armed robbery was tied to him stealing her credit cards and using them after her death. These charges painted a picture of a crime that was not only brutal but also calculated. Because of the seriousness of these crimes, Philip was tried as an adult, even though he was only 14 at the time. This decision sparked debates about whether someone so young could truly understand the consequences of their actions. But for Colleen's family and many others, there was no question, justice had to be served. Inside the courtroom. The trial began in November 2015, 2 years after Colleen's murder. Every day her family sat in the courtroom, listening to details that no parent or sibling should ever have to hear. The prosecution laid out their case methodically, starting with surveillance footage from Danvers High School. They showed the jury clips of Philip following Colleen into the girls' bathroom and later pushing the green recycling bin through the hallways. The footage was silent, but it spoke volumes. One of the most emotional moments came when a forensic expert testified about Colleen's injuries. The jury learned that she had been stabbed 16 times with a box cutter and that some of her wounds were defensive, meaning she fought back. Hearing this was devastating for her family, who sat quietly but visibly shaken. The prosecution also called witnesses to testify about Philip's behavior after the murder. Employees at a local movie theater described how he used Colleen's credit card to buy a ticket for a showing of Blue Jasmine. They said he acted completely normal, calm, polite, and showing no signs of distress. This detail left many in the courtroom stunned. How could someone commit such a horrific act and then go watch a movie like nothing had happened? But perhaps one of the most powerful testimonies came from Colleen's parents, Tom and Peggy Ritzer. They spoke about their daughter's kindness, her dreams of becoming an educator, and how much she meant to their family and community. Their words were filled with pain but also strength. They wanted everyone to know who Colleen was beyond what had happened to her. As emotional as the trial was for Colleen's family, it also raised complicated legal questions about Philip Chisholm's mental state at the time of the crime. This became a central focus for both sides. The prosecution argued that Philip knew exactly what he was doing when he attacked Colleen. They pointed to how he brought a box cutter to school that day, changed his clothes after the murder, and tried to hide her body in the woods. These actions, they said, showed planning and intent, proof that this wasn't an impulsive act but something he thought through beforehand. They also highlighted his behavior after the crime, using Colleen's credit card to buy a movie ticket and calmly walking along Route 1 when police found him hours later. To them, this was further evidence that Philip understood what he had done and wasn't acting out of confusion or mental illness. The defense, on the other hand, painted a very different picture of Philip Chisholm, a boy who they said was deeply troubled and unable to control his actions on that day. They argued that he suffered from severe mental health issues stemming from his parents' divorce and his struggles adjusting to life in Massachusetts after moving from Tennessee. Psychologists testified on behalf of the defense, saying that Philip may have been experiencing psychosis at the time of the crime. One expert claimed that he heard voices telling him what to do and couldn't distinguish right from wrong in those moments. They pointed to his withdrawn behavior in school leading up to October 22 as evidence that something was seriously wrong. But this argument didn't sit well with prosecutors or Colleen's family. They countered by saying that even if Philip had mental health challenges, it didn't excuse what he did, or erase all the evidence showing how carefully he carried out his attack. The trial stretched on for weeks as both sides presented their cases. The courtroom became a battleground between two narratives. Was Philip Chisholm a calculating murderer who planned every step? Or was he a deeply disturbed teenager who lost control? As closing arguments wrapped up, tension filled the courtroom. Jurors were tasked with answering difficult questions about intent, responsibility, and justice for Colleen Ritzer, a young woman whose life had been taken so violently. What would they decide? And how would their decision shape not only Philip Chisholm's future but also how we think about accountability for crimes committed by teenagers? Stay with us as we uncover what happened next. After weeks of intense testimony and emotional arguments, the jury in Philip Chisholm's trial finally reached a verdict. On December 15, 2015, they found him guilty on all charges: first-degree murder, aggravated rape, and armed robbery. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read. Colleen Ritzer's family embraced each other, tears streaming down their faces. It was a moment of relief, but also a stark reminder of their devastating loss. For them, the trial had been a long and painful journey, reliving the worst day of their lives over and over again. Because Philip was convicted of first-degree murder, he faced a mandatory sentence of life in prison. However, due to his age at the time of the crime, he wasn't eligible for the harshest sentence possible: life without parole. Instead, the judge sentenced him to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years. This meant that Philip, who was just 16 years old at the time of sentencing, would spend at least 4 decades behind bars before he could even apply for release. For some, this sentence was justice served. For others, it wasn't enough. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Speaking their truth. During the sentencing hearing, members of Colleen Ritzer's family had the opportunity to address the court directly. These impact statements allowed them to express the pain and grief they had endured since Colleen's murder and to speak directly to Philip about the consequences of his actions. Colleen's mother, Peggy Ritzer, delivered a powerful and heartbreaking statement. She spoke about how Colleen's death had shattered their family and left a void that could never be filled. She described her daughter as a kind, compassionate, and loving person who had dedicated her life to helping others. Peggy also addressed Philip directly, telling him that she would never forgive him for what he had done. She said that he had not only taken Colleen's life but had also stolen their peace and happiness. Her words were raw and filled with emotion, reflecting the depth of her suffering. Colleen's father, Tom Ritzer, also shared a poignant statement. He spoke about how proud he was of Colleen and all that she had accomplished in her short life. He talked about her passion for teaching and her ability to connect with her students on a personal level. Tom also expressed his fears for the future, wondering if Philip would ever be truly rehabilitated or if he would always pose a threat to society. He urged the court to impose a sentence that would protect others from experiencing the same pain that his family had endured. Other members of Colleen's family also spoke, each sharing their own memories and feelings about the tragedy. Their statements painted a vivid picture of a young woman who was deeply loved and whose loss had left an unfillable void in their lives. These impact statements weren't just words. They were a testament to Colleen's legacy and a reminder of the human cost of violence. They also served as a powerful call for justice and accountability. What does justice look like? As Philip Chisholm was led away to begin his life sentence, many people in Danvers and beyond were left to grapple with difficult questions about justice, forgiveness, and healing. Was this the right outcome? Did it bring closure to Colleen's family and community? The case also sparked broader conversations about mental health and the role it plays in criminal behavior. Should Philip's mental state have been considered more heavily during the trial? Could this tragedy have been prevented if he had received help sooner? There are no easy answers to these questions. But one thing is clear: Colleen Ritzer's memory will continue to inspire those who knew her to live with kindness, compassion, and a commitment to making the world a better place. After the trial, many people began to wonder about the psychological factors that might have played a role in Philip Chisholm's actions. The courtroom had heard various evaluations and testimonies that painted a complex picture of his mental health. During the trial, several psychologists took the stand to discuss Philip's mental state. The defense argued that he suffered from severe mental illness, including psychosis, which caused him to hear voices telling him what to do. Dr. Richard Dudley, a psychologist for the defense, testified that Philip had been hearing an imaginary male voice since he was just 10 years old. This voice, he claimed, gave him commands that he felt compelled to follow. Philip reportedly expressed remorse for not understanding that these voices were a sign of illness. However, the prosecution challenged this view. They brought in their own experts who suggested that Philip was faking his mental illness to avoid taking full responsibility for his actions. Dr. Kelly Casey testified that while Philip had a vivid fantasy life, he understood the difference between reality and fantasy. She argued that he was not lost in a world of delusions but was instead aware of his actions on the day of Colleen's murder. This back and forth raised questions about what was truly happening inside Philip's mind. Was he genuinely suffering from a severe mental disorder, or was he using it as a defense mechanism? The jury had to sift through conflicting opinions and determine how much weight to give each expert's testimony. Impact on students and faculty. While the trial focused on Philip Chisholm's mental state, the impact of Colleen Ritzer's murder rippled through Danvers High School and beyond. Students and faculty alike found themselves grappling with feelings of fear and uncertainty. Many students reported feeling unsafe in their own school after such a horrific event unfolded in what should have been a safe environment for learning. Teachers noticed changes in their students. Some became withdrawn and anxious, while others struggled to concentrate on their studies. The sense of security that once filled the hallways had been shattered. Teachers shared their experiences during this difficult time. One teacher recalled how students would often express their fears about being alone in school or walking through empty hallways after class. It was heartbreaking, she said. You could see the worry in their eyes. Another teacher mentioned how they started holding discussions about safety and mental health in class, trying to create an open dialogue where students could express their feelings without judgment. We wanted them to know it was okay to talk about their fears, she explained. The school administration also took steps to address these concerns by increasing security measures and providing counseling services for students who needed support. They recognized that healing would take time and that it was essential to foster a safe environment for everyone. But even with these efforts, questions lingered. Would things ever feel normal again? How could they ensure that something like this wouldn't happen again? As we reflect on the psychological aspects of this case, it's clear that Colleen's murder had lasting effects on her community, both in terms of mental health awareness and safety perceptions within schools. What do you think schools can do to better support students' mental health? How can communities come together after such tragedies? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights are important to us. As we reflect on the life and legacy of Colleen Ritzer, it's clear that her memory continues to inspire many. Her passion for teaching and her dedication to her students have left a lasting impact on the Danvers community and beyond. Colleen's legacy lives on through various initiatives that were established in her honor. The Colleen E. Ritzer Memorial Fund, for example, supports aspiring educators with scholarships, helping to ensure that her spirit of kindness and commitment to education is carried forward. Each recipient of this scholarship embodies Colleen's values, striving to make a difference in the lives of their students just as she did. Additionally, community events like the annual Step Up for Colleen Charity Walk bring people together to celebrate her life while raising funds for educational causes. These gatherings not only honor Colleen but also reinforce the importance of community support in education. They remind us that one person can spark change and inspire others to follow in their footsteps. Colleen's story is not just one of tragedy. It's also a powerful reminder of the impact that kindness and compassion can have on our world. Her teachings encourage us all to be better, to support one another, and to create safe spaces for everyone, especially in our schools. As we move forward, let's take a moment to reflect on important issues like school safety and mental health. How can we work together to create environments where all students feel secure and supported? What steps can we take to ensure that kindness becomes a core value in our communities? In the wake of Colleen Ritzer's tragic death, the Danvers community came together in a powerful show of support and love. Vigils were held, where friends, family, students, and neighbors gathered to remember Colleen and honor her life. These gatherings were filled with tears, laughter, and heartfelt stories about a woman who had touched so many lives. One of the most heartfelt events took place just days after her passing. Hundreds of people filled the school's courtyard, holding candles that flickered softly in the evening light. As they stood together, sharing memories and comforting one another, it became clear how deeply Colleen had impacted everyone around her. People spoke about her kindness, her passion for teaching, and how she always went the extra mile for her students. It was a moment of unity that helped heal some of the pain caused by her loss. Students from Danvers High School organized a memorial service where they shared poems and songs dedicated to Colleen. Many wore pink, her favorite color, as a symbol of love and remembrance. The community came together not just to mourn but to celebrate the life of someone who had given so much to others. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, light could still shine through. Thank you so much for being here with us at Crime Scene Chronicles. To our loyal subscribers, your support means everything. Every like, every comment, and every share helps us tell these important stories and honor the lives impacted by these events. You're not just viewers, you're part of a growing community that cares about understanding, learning, and making a difference. Thank you for being such an important part of this journey. If you're new here, welcome. We'd love for you to join our community by hitting that subscribe button. Together, we explore real-life cases, share meaningful conversations, and shine a light on stories that deserve to be remembered. Your voice matters here, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let's continue to grow this space where we can reflect, learn, and create awareness about the issues that truly matter. Thank you for watching and for being part of something bigger.